I got to a point where I couldn't do my own hair. I could barely do my own grocery shopping. And I was like, man, I'm alive, but am I really living? Um, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to leave any stone unturned.
Hey, Sickle family. I'm Wunmi Bakare.
I'm Christelle Salomon.
With a special guest appearance from Dima Hendricks.
And we would like to welcome you to the Through the Genes podcast,
where we talk about living,
healing,
recovering,
and exploring transformative therapies for sickle cell disease.
We will also talk about our individual journeys and the bond that we have built as sickle cell sisters. Hey, Sickle family, welcome to another season of Through the Genes podcast, season 2. Welcome to our show. Through the Genes is here with a brand spanking new format. This season, we're giving you 12 well-curated episodes going beneath the surface. Our podcast is one where we have real, unfiltered conversations about cell and gene-based therapies and patient advocacy. I'm Wunmi Bakare, your host, and I have my fantastic sickle cell sister, Dima Hendricks. Dima, say hello to the people.
Hey, Sickle family, how are you doing? I'm so glad to be here with you. Wunmi, girl, I missed you. And I can't, I'm so glad to be here with you. Gene and cell-based therapies are at the forefront of sickle cell treatment, and they create life-changing opportunities for sickle cell patients. But some people have not been able to recoup the benefits of transformative therapies. I mentioned in season 1, episode 1 of Through the Genes, my transformative journey led to a severe complication, which led to an open heart surgery. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go through the whole protocol. And as a result, I'm still a sickle cell warrior. Instead of healing and taking time out for myself through the journey, I went right into advocacy mode. I never took time for myself. So I'm here with the podcast, but I decided to take a little step back. You won't see me on all of the Through the Genes episodes. So we decided to add someone to the sisterhood. I would like to introduce you to Christelle Salomon, our new sickle sister. Welcome to the family, Christelle.
Thank you. Glad to be a part of it. So excited.
Yes, this is fantastic. However, I do want to take a second because my sister may not be in front of your lens, but I guarantee you she's working hard behind the scenes. And this show would be nothing without Dima's influence, Dima's perspectives, Dima's wealth of knowledge. But I think more importantly, who she is as a person. And so this is See You Soon. The goal is for her to recognize that her love and her passion for this space requires us as patient advocates to continuously pour into others and into the work that we do. And nothing brings me more joy than when a fervent, fearless warrior takes a moment to not only protect their peace, but replenish their tank. And so for Dima, it's the bravest thing she could do is to talk the talk and walk the walk. We ended the season with mental health, and she is the epitome of what it means to prioritize both your physical and your mental health.
Amen.
So with that being said, today we're going to discuss a deeply personal and important discussion: patient experiences with experimental treatments, the triumphs and the trials. Now, on this episode, I want to start things off with an icebreaker question. In one word, describe your transformative therapy journey. Christelle, I'll have you start us off since you're brand spanking new.
Thanks. I'm going to start off by saying I did cheat a little bit because it's a 2-word, 1-worder, but I would describe it as roller coaster.
I would say chaos.
Initially, I thought life altering, which just like Christelle, it's a 2 for 1. But then as soon as I sat in this seat, I said miracle. Because it was exactly that. God carried me through at every single stage. So I will use the word miracle. So now let's kind of talk about the decision to undergo experimental treatment. Dima, because of your deeply personal story with Lyfgenia, can you talk us through what motivated you to explore gene therapy?
I wanted relief. Waking up every morning in pain, or just even sleeping through the night in pain, was motivation enough for me to move forward. I have children, and both of my boys have seen me in pain, and both of my boys have acted as my caregiver, and I wanted to relieve them from that stress. So when this clinical trial came to be, I wanted that relief, not just for myself, but for my children, for my husband who has sacrificed so much. He sacrificed things at his job, his career, just to make sure that I was taken care of. So that was it. My motivation was relief from my pain and relief from my family's sacrifice.
Beautifully said. I can't fathom what it means to be a warrior, but also a mother, because we know that women are the foundation of the family unit. And so to have to balance not just your own emotions, but also put into consideration the rest of your entire family unit really highlights how sickle cell disease doesn't just impact the patient, but it also impacts their family and the community that surrounds them.
Similarly to Dima, I really was looking for relief, and I was on a path in medical school that was requiring so much out of me that I didn't have to give, because sickle cell was already consuming so much. I got to a point where I couldn't do my own hair. I could barely do my own grocery shopping. And I was like, man, I'm alive, but am I really living? And I was like, you know what? I don't want to leave any stone unturned. Like, if having sickle cell for the rest of my life is what is for me, then that's fine. But it's not going to be because I didn't try to uncover every possibility for changing.
I think for me, it was quality of life. My quality of life was significantly declining. And I think growing up with sickle cell, I always separated myself. She was like the friend I knew existed, but I wanted no parts of her friendship. And the more I fought against sickle cell, the worse my health became. And like you, sickle cell has robbed me of a lot. But of course, with age comes wisdom. And now I know I'm exactly where I need to be. But my quality of life was significantly declining. I missed out on so many family events. And so I felt if death is the plan, I'm going to go out swinging. And swinging for me meant exploring what other options there were outside of disease modifying therapies like hydroxyurea, because even though that is standard of care and it works for a lot of people, after being on hydroxyurea for a decade, I didn't reap the same benefits that my peers were able to reap. And so it just felt like a natural progression was to want more. But as someone navigating a chronic illness, nothing prepares you for the unpredictability of having sickle cell disease. To be very honest with you ladies, I genuinely think if you are going to embark on an experimental treatment, you have to have eye on the prize mentality, because so many things will try to shake you. It's not an easy process. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Christelle, Dima and I had season 1 to share with the audience our unique sickle cell stories. For you, can you talk to us a little bit about your transformative therapy?
Yeah. You touched on so many points that I feel like made up very important pieces of my journey when it came to the decision making and then actually getting the treatment. There's something uniquely traumatizing about being in the medical space, trying to become a professional, and then simultaneously feeling rejected by it as a patient. And there were many times, even in the classroom, I felt scared to share that I had sickle cell, because of the conversations that were happening about people who go to the hospital and ask for narcotics. And I think there's this perception that society and the medical system has as a whole for sickle cell warriors. And I actually was turned down. Like, several providers tried to convince me that I didn't need the transplant, that I wasn't sick enough, I wasn't dying yet, my organs weren't fully failing yet. And so it took a while to even get into that transformative therapy space. But as that desperation came up, I really started looking into other options. I started reading clinicaltrials.gov, did my own research, and was able to bring the conversation to my providers I had already tried hydroxyurea and crizanlizumab and L-glutamine. And despite all three of those, my symptoms still were just so bad. And it wasn't until I finally met my transplant doctor that I actually felt seen as a person. And it was the first time I would share my symptoms, share my thought process. This is what I read about transplant. I think I'm a good fit. I have a donor that matches perfectly. And it was the first time I felt seen. And so I really felt encouraged because I felt like for the first time, the information that I was reading, the hope that I had for this transplant was finally being reciprocated by a provider who could make that happen for me. And so I was excited after that. I went from defeated and discouraged to excited. In the hospital, I actually didn't have that many symptoms. I was like, this, my hair didn't fall out till weeks later. I was like, I might keep my hair. I thought I was chilling. I was like, this is smooth. This is way easier than sickle cell ever was. Sign me up again. And that high was great. And I think it got me through, like you were saying, that tunnel vision got me through some of the harder days getting radiation and chemotherapy. But then the high kind of wore off when you leave the hospital and all of a sudden you have a virus that you don't know. So many symptoms, so many things that I couldn't explain. And so I entered a new territory of me not understanding why each symptom is happening, why each complication is happening. And so I didn't leave that stage of always feeling a level of uncertainty until about 2 years post-transplant. And I'm living a new life that I never could have imagined, but it wasn't without its ups and downs. And I think really having a community, a support system, having my faith has really got me through some of the lowest lows and has encouraged me to stay hopeful for more highs.
So Christelle, you shared a lot, and there's so many commonalities within our different stories that we share. If there's one theme that I see consistent with all three of us, you mentioned the word desperation. Every single one of us wanted to have this transformative therapy because of desperation. What were your highs and what were your lows? I'm gonna start with you, Wunmi. What was your lowest point?
I'm going to share this with the audience, but one of my lowest, I had 2 really low days. The first was going through a spinal tap when they had to do a bone marrow aspiration. I'm someone who I don't respond to lidocaine. My body doesn't respond. It doesn't break down lidocaine in the same way. Unfortunately, we had the spinal tap. I was on the wheelchair. I was in a lot of pain. I was in tears. And then I had a dental appointment afterwards. And when you embark on the transformative therapy, one of the things the doctors like to limit is your areas that you could have an infection. At the time, I had some teeth at the back that needed filling, and I hadn't taken care of it because it wasn't aching. My provider was like, this is one of those areas that could make going through conditioning and then embarking on getting the stem cells, it could put you at a higher risk of catching an infection, which of course you don't want because you're neutropenic at the time. Neutropenic, for those who don't know, it just means that your immune system doesn't function the way it is because you've gone through conditioning. So it increases your probability of having an infection. And so I had 3 teeth at the side of my right jaw taken out because they just, based on the timeline that we had for the process, there wasn't any time to like fill it and do the correct protocol. And so you can imagine your spine hurts, your teeth hurt, you're in pain. And as we know, crisis is triggered by stress. And those 2 things were highly stressful situations. So everything, it felt like my face was swollen, my lower back was swollen, my body was hurting. And I remember I reached out to one of my best friends, Rogelio, and just the moaning and the tears, it just broke him. And he was like, this is one of those times I don't even know what to say to comfort you. Another day that was extremely low was going through CAMPATH. If you are in the medical field, it's called shake and bake because as the term says, you are physically shaking. And when people are like, oh, can you describe a CAMPATH experience? It feels like you're having a really high fever. Someone is taking a metal chain, and you know how like a viper snake wraps around people? It felt like someone wrapped a chain and then they would tighten and then leave and then tighten and I remember I was in so much agony. I wanted to throw up, but I was too sick to even like put my head in. I had to go through that for 5 days. And the first day, my mom couldn't watch me like that. Like she literally was just like in tears. She had to like leave and like just take a breather. And I had one of those nurses who every time you push the call light, she probably rolled her eyes and was like, ugh, What does she want again? And that was my first day of camp path. So she left me to marinate in that feeling, not responsive to my meds. But on the positive side, what that taught me was I needed to prepare for the second day. Because if I had 5 days of this, then I needed to set myself up for success. And so the next day when she came, I was like, absolutely not. Who's your charge nurse? We need to swap you out because I need someone that is responsive and someone that will preempt what my needs are as a patient and give it to me before shake and bake starts. And so those 2 days were extremely low because it felt like I had absolutely no control over my body. And a lot of I always say my nephew is my anchor because he was born in March of 2019. My transplant was in August of 2019. So I kept my eyes on, he needs an aunt that's not going to be sick all the time and he's going to have to see me in the hospital. He needs an aunt that's going to play and run and do soccer. And that day, I articulated and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, take me out of this protocol. And my doctor was like, you're sensitive now, just like cry, sleep, we'll wake up tomorrow and then we'll see how you feel. And it was like a come to Jesus moment because my mom was like, you're the strongest person I know. You've gotten this far. And the pep talk helped. But what really turned things around for me was I FaceTimed with my nephew. And, children are so innocent and beautiful. The smile he had on his face, I was like, I'm gonna keep going.
Thank you for sharing that. That was a lot. I'm seeing a lot of underlying themes that are consistent. But Christelle, what about you? What was your low point during your transformative experience?
Interestingly, my lowest points took place after the hospitalization, after conditioning, after I was discharged, and mainly during the long-term recovery. One of the first lows that came to my head, maybe 4 or 5 months post-transplant, I started experiencing joint pain. My left knee was hurting, and then my right knee was hurting, and then my left elbow was hurting. And before you know it, I was in a wheelchair. I was experiencing a lot of pain, and I didn't know why. And in that moment, I knew I didn't have sickle cell. I know this is not sickle cell, but I felt trapped again. It reminded me of the feelings that I had when I had sickle cell. Sickle cell felt like a box or a chain. It was a chain that always had me on a tight grip, on a tight leash. Something about that was very traumatizing. I didn't realize how scared I was of pain and feeling like I was worse off than I had originally started. Pre-transplant also discouraged me because I started to think, did I make the wrong decision? Like, what am I going to do when everyone's asking me, are you doing great? Are you feeling good? Aren't you happy you got the transplant? And my answer is, I'm in a wheelchair and I'm sad because I feel like I have reverted back to the life I used to have, if not worse. And so that was something that really challenged me. And I didn't like the uncertainty of not knowing if things were going to get better. And I think it ties into the second low. I think the reason why I didn't like the uncertainty is because I'd already felt like sickle cell had taken so much away. And I thought the transplant was going to bring me so much, but I didn't realize I would also lose things. And a year post-transplant, 6 months post-transplant, I ended up deciding to leave medical school. There's a very tight timeline between when you matriculate medical school, when you start, and then when you graduate. And if I didn't start medical school within 3 months post-transplant, I wasn't going to finish in that timeline. And my school wasn't able to help me get exceptions for that. And so instead of trying to go back to a place where I wasn't getting good care and I don't have an immune system and I'm going back to the classroom, I was like, I didn't go through all of this just to risk my life for a degree, for a medical degree. I didn't think it was worth it. So I left medical school 3 months post-transplant. And then a year post-transplant, all my friends matched into residency. A year post-transplant, all my friends graduated. And I remember, I was like, that would have been me. As much as I'm so grateful for what the transplant was able to give me, I also realized that I gave up this dream. And that dream had been such a big part of my identity. And this was how I described myself before the transplant. Hi, my name's Christelle. I'm a sickle cell warrior and a future doctor. Those were my two core pieces of my identity. And I lost both of them in no time. And so I was like, I don't have sickle cell. Am I still a sickle cell warrior? I'm also not a doctor anymore. I have $500,000 worth, $250,000 worth of debt. And this is not the life I thought I was signing up. This is not the life I thought I was paving for myself. And really learning to embrace the fact that even though I lost things, I lost my identity, that was part of the process. That was part of the journey God had for me. And I wasn't going to be the doctor I wanted to be with sickle cell. I was depressed. I was miserable. I was bitter. I hated medicine. I hated science, not because it wasn't fun, but because I couldn't enjoy it with the life I was living with sickle cell disease. And so I know it was the right thing for me to do to not go to medical school, but it took a long time. It took a long time for me to grieve the loss of the things that I thought I would be able to hold on to and the things that gave me so much worth. And it really challenged me to have to rediscover my identity. You know, I'm not a summation of productivity. I'm not a summation of the things that I accomplish. I am, and this is my personal opinion, I'm a daughter of the King, serve the Most High. Like that, there is nothing more satisfying than having that identity of being God's child. And I think that I wouldn't have gotten to that revelation without getting to a point where I felt like I had lost everything about myself. And so, as much as it's a low, I know I was just explaining a low. It was a very low, but it was totally redeemed into something that was a high and something I'm so grateful for now. But I don't have to identify with my diagnoses. I don't have to identify with my profession. They're just parts of my life that I actually have the privilege of living.
Wow. My first lowest moment was this is after being the first person to sign up and realizing now as I see now the second person is going ahead of me and then the third person is going ahead of me and then the fourth. So I'm like, okay, when is it my turn? After that happened and after having an infection in my port and having all of these things happen and then finding out I have a blood clot, I think the lowest moment was I was hospitalized for 2 months after they found out I had an infection and a blood clot. And I did not, the freedom that I was trying to obtain and the desperation for I don't want to be sick anymore, the desperation of I don't want to have anything to do with sickle cell had left me in this situation of me being in a bed, I have a catheter, couldn't get up to go to the bathroom. There was no freedom for me. And then, as I mentioned before, I felt like such a liability for my family. And here I am, this wife and mother I'm trying to be this wife and mother. And in a Christian household, you know, the mom is like matriarch, you know, you cook your meals, you make sure everybody's fed, you make sure you go to the soccer games, you get a minivan and you do all the things and you're there for your spouse. And here I am in the hospital and my kids are coming to see me with all these tubes and all these things happening to me. And then I go into heart surgery. And there was a moment where I said my goodbyes to my family. I told them, you know, I love you. And I was prepared to not wake up. So that was that low point. And then after all of that, months after the open heart surgery, had the compression pillow on my chest and doing all of the protocols, I still wanted to be a part of the transformative journey. I still wanted to be free from sickle cell. And again, the desperation was like in overdrive because I was still feeling pain. And I got a phone call from the lead investigator for the clinical trial. And she said to me, you know, you went through so much through this protocol that we don't want to kill you. And we're going to have to take you out of this protocol. And it wasn't a decision that I made. It was made for me. So again, my choices were taken away. I didn't choose. I said this, I talked to my father recently. I had a conversation with him. I said to him, I didn't choose to be born. I didn't choose for you to procreate and have me here. I didn't choose for you I didn't choose to have sickle cell. There's a lot of things that I did not choose. And so another time I wanted freedom and then the choice was made for me not to have freedom. But the high point of all of that is in embracing and accepting that I'm going to have sickle cell for the rest of my life, I've started to feel a little bit more freedom because this diva of a thing called sickle cell, this heifer that I want to choke, this thorn in my side is the thing that gives me empathy. It's the thing that makes me a better therapist. It's the thing that makes me a better mother. It's the thing that makes me understand other individuals. And the more I accept the fact that I have it and am going to continue to have it, the more freedom that I feel. And no, you could probably tell by now, audience, we are women of faith. But when I read stories of the Bible, and I'm reading Paul, and he was in jail, and his jail became his freedom, and he discovered his thorn in his side, and that was the thing that kept him and gave him purpose. And so I feel like this heifer called sickle cell is giving me and driving me and fueling my purpose.
I say it all the time. I'm extremely proud of you. I say it all the time that I think you are just everything. And if you know her personal life story, you'll understand why I'm saying this, because Dima's one of those people that she's unassuming. So you wouldn't, when you meet her, you're like, I wouldn't guess. And then she's a pageant queen, so she's very poised. But when you know her life story and you see the way she moves and glides, and she's so malleable, no matter the direction life is, she just kind of contorts and then finds a space for herself. You'll understand why I say she's extremely powerful. But sis, yeah, the love I have for you. You already know, I say it all the time, but thank you for being you. Thank you for being you. I'm not trying to make you cry, but thank you for being you. Because I think you're a flipping phenomenal individual.
Ditto. I think the same of you guys.
Amen. Can I just hop on the
Of course.
appreciation train?
Yes.
And just the awe of how you've let God use you. And when I was looking into transformative therapy options and trying to understand, is this something I want to do? I wanted to hear everything. And I feel like sometimes we get pushed the success stories, like, oh my gosh, this person has a new life. We can't talk about the success stories without talking about when it doesn't go well, when it doesn't go the way you plan. And I just thank you for just being so real with us and sharing that perspective. Like, this is how I felt going through each stage of disappointment, because I don't think we highlight that is a risk enough, and it's unfair to the person on the other side. You didn't walk into this thinking that might. I think that's not fair. But what I do love about your story is how I hear there's a new authority that you have claimed.
Mm-hmm.
You don't identify with the sorrow. Like the sorrow, the disappointment wasn't the final say. You get to reclaim and re-identify. God redeems this whole story, that you would be on this platform and sharing this story. And I know it's touching other people the way it's filling Wunmi and I. And I'm trying really hard not to cry. I'm trying not to cry, but it's just so powerful. And I'm just so happy to hear this newfound freedom, because sometimes we think freedom is like boundless, but freedom is actually can be contained. You know exactly where you are. You know every place you're going to run into, what to expect. It's not am I going to take this path or that path, or is this going to be for me? You're like, I'm a sickle cell warrior. I have sickle cell disease. It doesn't define me. I have authority. I have freedom. I get to choose to take a break when I need to. You're not chained to what your diagnosis is or what you feel like you need to be doing in this. I need to be an advocate. Like, I just hear that that's been released, and I love to hear it. And so yeah, there's beauty in all of it. And okay, I'm gonna stop talking now.
It's okay. All right, we're about to talk about where we are now. We're all in very different spaces. So, life after transformative therapies. Christelle, you and I are on the other side of a transplant, and I can personally say it's nothing short of transformational. But how has life changed for you?
Yeah, it's one of those seasons where you think 3 years out, you think it starts to get old, but it doesn't get old. I'm still every other day like, this really happened? Is this for real? And so, yeah, I feel like it's interesting, because I feel like so many more opportunities are so many things I didn't consider before because I lived with sickle cell are now an option. They're now on the table. I'm now thinking about marriage. I'm now thinking about kids. I'm now thinking about going to the gym. I'm now thinking about, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to live somewhere else? Like, I don't have to live in the United States, because I'm like, I absolutely need a hematologist who's going to be able to see me, and I need to be able to go to the hospital every other week. And so I think there's a newfound freedom in a way that I just wasn't expecting. And I think I'm learning to grow into that. I'm learning to let myself dream, let myself imagine things beyond what I had originally thought for myself. And I can make plans. Like, I can, before the transplant, I couldn't eat before getting on a plane. I would eat like one chip, because this literally happened to me. And I projectile vomited the whole ride, even though there was nothing left. Ended up in the hospital. Like, it was like I would get a stomach crisis every time I ate before getting on an airplane, which made traveling not fun. And I also, being in the air and sickle cell, that's not new. And so now I can drink my coffee, which is crazy, drink a diuretic, eat food, hop on the plane for 8 hours, stay up the whole time, kikiing on my laptop, no sleep, get off, and just resume and just act like nothing happened. That whole little series would have sent me to the hospital before the transplant. And so for me right now, just, it's the little things that feel insignificant, that would seem insignificant by the eye, but just really makes such a profound difference in the quality of my life. And I don't take it for granted.
That was congrats to you, girl. Congrats to you. But in talk about life after treatment, I'm gonna try my best to be candid, but not to scare anyone off, because I feel like our role as advocates, our role as patients, recognizing that our voice has power, also requires candor and requires us to step up to the plate and say things that aren't always said. So even though yesterday something quite mundane happened, I was just like in a space of gratitude. When I'd be sick in the hospital sometimes, and it would be on a weekend, right? And maybe like there's a football game or there's something, I would be in the hospital and I'd be like, God, please, I just want an opportunity to like go to lunch with my friend and like drive home and like, you know what I mean, like send a couple of emails. Like I would really like that. It seems again so mundane, but I just always, and so yesterday was a crazy day. This week we had the SCD policy forum, so sat through that with a lot of like federal government senators and representatives. So that again took out of me. Then after that, you both know I've been sick with influenza, so that took some stuff out of me. And then we have to travel for sickle cell. And so the whole preparing for a trip, it takes things out of you. And yesterday, like I had to have some blood work done. So I was driving to the clinic to get my blood work. It ended up being longer than expected because people don't realize I ain't got no veins. They have to access the port, and there was no nurse that could access the port. So we had to wait. Anywho's, got that done, and then went to meet up with Jimmy for lunch. And we finished and we're chatting, and I dropped him off at the event he went to. And as I was driving back, I was like, oh my God, I did it. Like that mundane thing that I always prayed for, to just be able to do stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone gets tired, right? But even in the tiredness, I wasn't limited by, normally sickle cell would have been like, girl, I better come over here. If you see Mortal Kombat, you know the reference. This is showing my age, but it was like a sickle cell was just like yank me, like, sis, don't play with me. You are trying to think you're better. No, you're not. And normally, like all of the things I'm preparing for mentally, I'm pouring, it would have drained me mentally and drained me physically. And then driving would have been the last thing on my mind. But to do that yesterday, I was in the car and I was like, oh, I did it. And I was so giddy. And it was so random because like I was in traffic and it was raining and I had like a nice dope playlist, K-pop going, and I was jamming. People were just looking at me like, first and foremost, girl, like, did you win the lottery? Because you're way too happy, even though we're in traffic. So for me, that's a high.
Amen.
It's the high that like you inhale it, you breathe it. It gives you like an euphoric state of mind, but it makes you see the world as people are just navigating day-to-day life clouded in the fog, that they take the everyday things they can do for granted, that for us takes some level of planning. But then there are lows. Like, for example, my gut,
Girl.
my GI tract is like,
God.
cheese, don't like it. Mashed potatoes, don't like it. Capri Sun, don't like it.
It's fun.
Sprite, don't like it. Chicken, don't like it. So my GI tract is like, it's she is literally, she has a life of her own, because again, she's the come over here. So even though sickle cell is kind of taking a backseat, maybe the GI tract is like, nope, 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 still here, still here. Then chronic pain. When you do these treatments, and for me, I was like, I don't want to be on opiates. I want to have a clear mind. I want to be able to work and not feel drowsy. I want to be able to have conversations and remember them. Don't, because some of the after effects of like our pain medications, for many of us, were either on like morphine, dilaudid, methadone, really strong opiates, is that for me, they would either make me really sleepy, or I would perform at my utmost best. Like sometimes I would read stuff I write when I'm like in the hospital, and I'd be like, your penmanship is fire. So that was how it was for me. But I was always just kind of like, I just need to need to have a clear head. I want to be in business meetings and talking my stuff and da 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 da. So I thought I would be able to close that chapter of my life. But chronic pain is like, sister, your pain receptors are still working. Take it down a notch. So now, we do the like muscle relaxants and the Tylenol and the ibuprofen. We're besties, me and ibuprofen, just so you know, I always have it on me. Same thing with Imodium, always have it on me. TMI, guys, but I'm just being honest.
Keeping it real.
That is that this body, Wunmi don't know her. Wunmi is getting to know her, and every time I'm like, girl, we're kosher, right? She's like, nah. The liver's like, yeah, we need to keep her on her toes, sis.
Wait, pause. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Because not only it was transparent and vulnerable, the way I cackled. Thank God for the mute button, because I was over here cackling. You delivered that with such humor. Thank you for giving me life this morning.
See, I work for my check. I do my job.
So for me, life after this transformative experience, of course I still have sickle cell. Of course, living in Massachusetts is brutally cold. I still have pain. But thankfully, I have a wonderful care team, amazing hematologist who I'm inviting to be a part of this podcast at some point, who sticks up for me and will be there. He's like my guard dog. So I have my husband and my my hematologist fighting for me. And so I don't have to do all of the fighting and heavy lifting that I did before. So that's a good thing. That's a great thing. And in this journey, I discovered a way of how to take care of my sickle cell body and live well with sickle cell. And then that is something that I modified and called it the sickle cell wellness wheel. And it's each component of our lives, an aspect of how, because since sickle cell is a diva and she's gonna be there for the rest of my life, how can I modify, or take care of myself in the medical aspect? How can I take care of myself intellectually? How can I take care of myself physically? Like all of the dynamics of wellness. How can we take care of ourselves in this sickle cell life? And so I created this wellness wheel, and when I started to actually implement it in my life, because I was telling the people, hey, this works. Once I started implementing it and checking the boxes, I was able to navigate, okay, I need time off because this issue is mentally toxic and it's psychologically unsafe. I need to walk away. Or it's too cold in this space. I may need to travel somewhere warm. Or, I need to make sure I'm eating the right food. and not eating junk, which would trigger a crisis. All of these aspects, now I know, okay, I need to make sure I'm doing it. And so with these modifications, with the right care team, I'm, like I said before, I'm finding a freedom. This diva's still here. She's still rearing her ugly head, but it's not as bad as it was. I may have to go call my provider and say, hey, I'm in pain today. This dude will send me an Uber and I will have an infusion and he will send an Uber back to take me back home. And it's not as chaotic as it was. There's more control with this life with sickle cell. So there is, there's the good and then there's the bad. And that's what I'm going through right now.
That was such an important point. And I think our takeaway word today is probably freedom. Yeah. Because in our own unique journeys, we have encountered and experienced a freedom that allows us to take the good, the bad, and the ugly, but still say, I have a beautiful life. And I think that's pretty amazing. Now, as you will notice on this episode, it was just family, and we needed it to be just family because behind the lens of hosts, there are real people. And so we're glad that you guys have taken time to hear our stories. We hope it inspires you. We hope it gives you a bit of a clearer point of view in conversations around cell and gene-based therapies. But more importantly, I hope it helps you understand that not every treatment works out the way we hope, but every patient's experience matters. So now we're going to turn things into fun, which is my favorite part of the show, our quick fire questions. Now, ladies, I'm going to ask the question. You guys have 2 seconds to answer. One thing I wish I knew before treatment. Dima.
I wish I knew the disappointment that it might have bring.
Christelle?
This one's a little lighthearted. I didn't know I wasn't going to be able to eat reheated rice, which if you're Caribbean, your whole diet is on making a batch of rice. And the way I struggled. So yeah, I would make 1/4 cups of rice at a time. That's the thing. At least at my institution, there's a whole conversation around food restrictions and transplant that maybe we should dive into another time. But no reheated rice, no mushrooms, no strawberries. Anyway, I wish I knew that. I was sad.
Jamaican Nigerian thing that would have made me pissed off.
It would have made you mad. Yeah.
Man.
One thing I wish I knew before treatment is I wish I knew that my identity as a sickle cell warrior will never change. I will always be one. I will die one. And I wear that as a badge of honor. And I will always fearlessly, boldly, outwardly defend other sickle cell warriors because sickle cell is me, but I'm not sickle cell.
Amen.
It doesn't take up the whole of my life. All right. Biggest misconception about gene or cell therapy, Christelle?
I think this is a big misconception from maybe the provider side or the healthcare side as warriors are starting to talk about transformative therapy, but that it's going to be the end all be all. It's just not. It's just not. Even if it ends up going awesomely, it's not one stop shop. There are so many other things that are included in this process.
Dima?
It's a magic wand. Big misconception. They think it's abracadabra. Boop. You're cured. No, that's not how it goes.
I think biggest misconception for me is that all of your complications that you experience with sickle cell disease will become in your rear view mirror. Simply not true. It might not get worse, but baby, if your lung has gone through bouts of acute chest syndrome under an MRI or an X-ray, baby, it's still gonna look the same. So go into it recognizing that, and I think you'll leave with a more realistic health outcome. One thing that always makes you smile, no matter how bad the day is, Dima.
My children.
Oh, that's such a mommy answer.
Yeah.
Seeing the sunrise.
Mm.
The sunrise, you can't see it every day in San Francisco, but no matter what, when I see that sun come out, I'm like, yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day.
I love that one. For me, it's the recognition that I have a bestie who, when I don't like him, he's aware. And when I do like him, he's aware. And when I'm uncertain, he's still aware. That makes me smile, because if I tell you the conversations I had with God in my head, it's like a whole comic book. You would die laughing, because literally I'm like, ugh, you're doing too much today. Everything is not working out. I don't know what's going on. Like, are the phone lines jammed? You know? All right, we're going to finish this off with one last one. Finish the sentence. Sickle cell warriors are, Dima?
Resilient.
Christelle?
Built different.
Woo!
Different.
I feel like this is where you in like the Transformers theme song.
We built different. Okay, that's gonna be the next episode. We gotta come with the song prepared.
Sickle cell warriors are one of a kind. You will never meet anyone that's quite like us. And from providers and patients alike, you experience that one patient that changes how you show up in this space. And for me, I'm like, you don't gotta give us our flowers, okay? Because baby, that crisis pain is worse than a gunshot. It's worse than a heart attack and childbirth. So
Facts.
give me my flowers, because I deserve it.
I'd rather have 10 babies. Because a baby, you know what happens after. Like, you get to hold the baby and love on the sickle cell, just like, here, I'm gonna be in pain. You're gonna be in pain all day for no reason.
No reason.
This conversation has been everything. Ladies, we have unpacked our truths. We have shared so many laughs, and the both of you continue and on a daily basis inspire me. So I'm blessed to be in this exclusive league of freaking powerful women. Now, to wrap up today's show, we would like to truly honor Dima Hendricks for being the fearless leader behind Through the Pain. And if you didn't know, ThroughTheGenes is an initiative of Through the Pain. Dima is taking care of herself, and we support her through it. We can't wait to have her back in the space, because, ooh, baby, the way she brings that poise and that queendom and queenship to the space, it's unlike any other. And so on this episode, Dima, I just want you to know that Christelle and I will take care of the show in the way that we know you would want us to take care of the show. All right, guys. So if you love this video and you love this content, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment, repost, reshare. Visit us at www.throughthegenes.com if you want to catch up on old episodes from season 1 or new episodes from season 2. And you can find all of us on every single social media platform. So follow us if you want to stay abreast of all things cell and gene-based therapy. That's us signing out. It's been Through the Genes. Bye. This show is brought to you by Beam Therapeutics, Synthago, and Kamau Therapeutics, with support from the UCSF Sickle Cell Center of Excellence, Through the Pain Inc., and Sickle Cell Prodigy.